The next few years were full of that kind of humor. After graduating from Spokane Falls, Mike and I both went to Eastern. We eventually moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 other guys. Boy, was that fun. In the process of pursuing our degrees, we found time to have a little fun, like putting a rubber band around the handle of the sprayer on the kitchen sink. Mind you, back then they were on the back of the sink, not in the handle like they are today. So when you turn it on, you get blasted with a shot of water. Sometimes we would take the shower head off the shower and fill it with Kool-Aid or instant coffee. So when somebody would get in the shower, they would just, you can imagine. Despite the fun and games, we both graduated with education degrees. Even though we ended up in different school districts, we both found ourselves coaching in our respective schools. Mike doing baseball and basketball, and myself doing football and basketball. We often talked after games, comparing notes on how we could do better and challenge each other. While teaching in Tooele, Mike met the love of his life, Margot. On February 19th, 1983, I had the honor of being in his wedding. And through the years, our friendship continued as he and Margot built their life together. In 1998, when I was blessed to marry Karen, my wife, there was no doubt that I wanted Mike to be my best man. In the years that followed, this is where I really began to see the true character of Mike as a man, what I called a friend, or we would call each other BFF. Mike was an amazing husband. The love and respect that he showed Margot was not just evident during the early years of their marriage, but continued into his last breath. Even if you did not know these two personally, one of the first things that you would notice is that they showed a true love when they were around each other. Years into their marriage, they manifested a love that usually is only seen with newlyweds. Mike was a person who was always present, not only for his wife, but for his 2 children and all of his grandchildren. During the last 6 to 7 years, we would talk on the phone like teenagers 4 to 5 times a week. We would often pray for each other, our spouses, kids, and our jobs. As I reflect on Mike's life influence, one of the first things that comes to mind is his walk with the Lord. Life on this earth is not always easy, but through its ups and downs, there was never a doubt Mike's faith is what he relied on to see him through these difficult times. Mike called himself a Christian not because of any church affiliation, but because of a personal relationship with God, because he had asked Jesus to be the Lord of his life. Mike lived a life that reflected that walk with the Lord. He was a man of honesty and integrity. It seems to stand out in his life, doesn't it? That's a character that is very admirable. He respected others, and I never heard him speak ill of anyone. Of all his many wonderful attributes, though, the one thing that stood out in my mind with Mike was that he was always positive. Never was that more evident at the end of his earthly life. We will all recognize that our days on earth are numbered. For some of us, that will come suddenly, but in Mike's case, he had time to process the nearness of this inevitable end. It's hard to say goodbye to loved ones and friends, but through the duration of his cancer, Mike clung to his belief that in the midst of heartache, there was hope. Hope in the future in which he will experience eternal life, be given a body free of pain and sickness, and where he will see his loved ones again. That is a life Mike lived, and I, for one, am looking forward to seeing him again. In the meantime, we grieve. The pain of having to say goodbye to Mike is indescribable. We long for another conversation, or his company, or to ask his opinion or advice. We will deeply miss Mike. He lived a full and rich life, and by our presence here today, we show that we have been touched by Mike in one way or another. He was a son, brother, husband, father, father-in-law, grandfather, and a great neighbor, and had great co-workers. Today, I want to remember that his legacy lives on through his family, whom I challenge all of us to continue to love and support. As I conclude, I'm reminded that we all have dates in our life that hold a special meaning to each of us, birthdays, anniversaries, etc. To Mike's family and friends, November 22nd is a day that has now taken on new significance. Death has a profound impact on us. For some, it represents the ultimate tragedy, an end to everything familiar and predictable. But for Margot and for many of us here today, we seek comfort in Scripture, like 1 Corinthians 2:9 that reads, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love Him." To those of us left behind here on earth, that verse encourages us that there is an eternal place that is more wonderful than anything we can imagine today. I find comfort and reassurance that our Mike has gone to that better world, and that I will one day join him on my motorcycle. To Margot and the rest of Mike's family, I do not want to minimize your pain. There will be difficult days ahead as we feel the loss of Mike. In Revelation 7:17 we read, "God will wipe away every tear from our eyes. Today the pain of having said goodbye to Mike is indescribable. I know that he profoundly touched many lives, and I will always cherish his friendship. But today, as we remember and honor the life of Mike Crumbaker, may we find peace in our hope that our separation is only temporary. May we find comfort in the knowledge that Mike has fought the good fight, finished the course, and kept the faith." I have one last story that came just days before or days after I wrote this, and I didn't know where to fit it in. But the story was that oftentimes when Mike and Margot, or just Mike, would come through town on business trips, that they would stay with us and the Dresbacks. Oftentimes, he would engage with my 3 kids, and he would always ask questions, and he just made them feel part of his family. On October 18th, the day I drove down, and I got a call from Margot to come say goodbye to Mike. It was a very difficult drive, and my son sent me a text asking me to read it to Mike when he was in hospice. Here is that letter. "Mike, if there is one thing I could say right now to you, it would be thank you. Thank you for being such an amazing role model, not just myself, but for every person you've ever encountered. I truly don't know if I've ever met someone who lets the love of God shine through them the way you do. Thank you for showing me from a young age how to be a godly man, a loving husband, and such a selfless father. You truly have made such a huge impact on my life, and I am so beyond grateful for you, sir. I thank you and Margot for being my second set of parents through all the years. Some of my most desired memories, or cherished memories, growing up are special to me because of how you and Margot always opened yourselves up and made us feel welcomed. Thank you for making me feel like we were a part of your family all these years. Your legacy will carry on, and I can't wait to tell my future kids about the amazing man you are. Thank you for being friends with my dad all these years. I love you, Mike. Thank you for being you."
Thank you for those words. Brian, would you, or Brent, I'm sorry, Brent, would you make your way up
I feel like there should be a big, huge belly laugh as we all walk up on the stage. My name is Brent Hill. I worked with Mike Crumbaker at General Civic. There's a number of us here that have worked with Mike, and lots of them, or not lots of them, some of them have worked with Mike for his full 30 years that he worked at General Civic. So, Margot and Melissa and Jeff were in my office one day and asked me to speak at this. And so I thought I would try and stay in my lane and be from a work perspective, but stick to the script, as many of you have already said. Mike enjoyed his coworkers, customers, and colleagues of the industry so much that he always made us feel more like a friend. So as we all sit here today to celebrate the life of our friend, Mike Crumbaker, I would like to say thank you, Mike. Thank you for letting us be a part of your life. As I have been thinking about Mike and all the stories, memories,